Hello, I'm going to speak to you today about the brass. We are in brass band country. The University of Salford is a brass band institution. Many of our graduates will find themselves as sound technicians working with bands and orchestras which include brass instruments. So a knowledge of the way in which the instruments produce notes of music is an advantage to the sound technician. All wind instruments of a brass band produce sound in the following way. The player places the mouthpiece, which is shaped like a cup but with a small hole at its base, against his or her lips. The lips are caused to vibrate much as they would if the player attempted to spit a tea leaf from the lips. The instrument presents a length of tubing which contains a column of air. The column can resonate at a particular frequency and at harmonics of that frequency. The instrument, without any of the three valves being depressed, will thus produce about 12 notes. By depressing the valves, the column of air can be lengthened, giving 12 more notes for each combination. In the case of the trombone, it is the slide which lengthens the column. Here's a short film made of the lips of a brass player, photographed presumably through a clear glass mouthpiece, and slowed down. I have to warn you now that the images are more than a little aesthetically challenged. The instruments of the brass band fall into several basic sections. First we have the cornets, of which there are about 10 or 11. There is one small cornet in A flat, about 9 regular cornets, and a flugelhorn which resembles the other cornets. They are all basically forward pointing. The construction of the cornet consists of a long conical tube with a mouthpiece at one end and a flared opening known as the bell at the other. The valves are positioned some way from the bell. It's also worth remembering at this point, when we're thinking about the cornet, is that its forerunner was the bugle. The difference being, of course, that the bugle could only produce the notes of a harmonic series based on its length. There were no ways of extending the tube. But it does remind us that many instruments of music that we have in our culture have come from the military tradition. From a music concept point of view, the cornets play a part in the band much as violins do in a string orchestra. The tenor horns are next, of which there are usually 3. These instruments are the smallest, which point upwards. The tube which forms part of the instrument is about 50% longer than that of the cornet, which means that for the same valve positions it produces notes a perfect fifth below the cornet. Trombones are also found in the band, and there are usually 3. These instruments point forward like the cornets. The construction consists of a cylindrical tube, and the column of air is lengthened by means of a slide. Formerly, in the brass band, there were 2 sizes, the tenor and the larger bass. The orchestra had also an alto trombone. There is a high C in Symphony No. 5 by Beethoven, which for some players is a problem on the tenor trombone, but which is easier to get on the alto. The old bass trombone in G, as it was, is now obsolete. Modern trombone sections tend to have 3 trombones of identical length, although some have a trigger mechanism for adding extra length to the column of air. Baritones are next, of which there are usually 2, and euphoniums, of which there are also usually 2. These instruments consist of a tube exactly twice the length of the cornet. The whole sequence of notes produced by these instruments for the same valve positions is an octave lower than the notes which the cornets produce. Basses are next, of which there are usually 4, comprising 2 in E flat and 2 in B flat. The E flat bass covers a higher range of bass notes, typically an octave below the tenor horn, and the B flat bass can manage lower notes, typically 2 octaves below the cornet. The brass band also has a section of percussion instruments, including kit and tuned percussion, similar to that of an orchestra. The brass band layout usually conforms to this plan. Some guidance is given here of mic deployment. So let's listen to a band playing on television. This was recorded about 40 years ago, and the copy which I possess was, I think, recorded on a VHS tape. So the technical quality is quite poor. However, the sound supervision is not bad, though I say so myself. I hope you enjoy it.